It is a very rare occurrence in this medium and on the internet at large that someone says, I was wrong. And I think it's because the internet is a vast ocean of narcissism, especially on YouTube. Those of us that make videos and comment about things, and especially the commenters. There are far more commenters on YouTube than there are video producers. And but to be a YouTube creator it takes a certain level of narcissism anyway. And I owe Nintendo a huge apology, and I really don't know where to begin other than by telling you all a story and how I how I have gotten to this point. It's been a little over 4 months since I made a video on this channel, and most of these videos don't get that many views, but I'm really doing this for just history's sake, so that they're voice memos, I suppose, to document this journey that I've been on, especially this year in video games, which I think is, especially in my life, this is the best year of video games ever. And the least expected surprise and the least hype, the most underwhelming and the least anticipated game that I had on my list for this year was Tears of the Kingdom. And when it was first announced, I was excited like everyone else, but then as the videos started rolling out, there was not that much new from Breath of the Wild. And I've made a few videos on this now. I think I've made at least 3 that have covered some points that I still believe are valid, especially looking back on it then, not knowing what I do now. But I'm not really here to defend my position on it then, as I am to say how wrong that I was. And I really don't believe that I've been more wrong about anything in my entire life, especially publicly. And so this is my apology to Nintendo. And it's not a grovel session by any means, but it's honesty. And I want to be honest about a few things here. My last video was titled, It's Time to Be Brutally Honest About Tears of the Kingdom. Well, I'm going to be brutally honest about that game with you now. And I guess the best way to do that is to tell you the story of how I got the game and the journey that I have been on since receiving it. Now, as of the last video that I made, I was not intending on purchasing Tears of the Kingdom. I was angry about the price increase and certainly was underwhelmed with the footage that we had been shown and the gameplay demos that we had been shown. It was more of the same to me. And as I say, that was... I think that was valid criticism at the time. I was definitely not the only one. I mean, as vast as YouTube is, you can just put in Zelda rant and you're going to pull up tons of videos about this. And I certainly was not making those videos to gain clicks or fame or popularity. This channel's got less than 100 subscribers, and I definitely am not doing it for any sort of gain, but just sharing my opinion on it, like everyone else. So. But it was just after my birthday, in late April, that right after the game had released, my fiance surprised me with a Tears of the Kingdom Edition Switch, the OLED. And a funny story, I have bought, and I might have mentioned this in a previous video, but I have bought 3 or 4 Nintendo Switches since the console released in 2017, and none of them were for me. I played Breath of the Wild on the Wii U and completed it. I put tons of hours in it, and this was at a time when shortly after that I was going to be playing The Witcher 3 and Red Dead Redemption 2, which are 2 of my top 10, possibly top 5 video games ever made in any era. And So when I played Breath of the Wild, it was very good at that time, but it was overshadowed by those two games that I just mentioned within a few years after playing Breath of the Wild. And it almost made me forget Breath of the Wild, and I did not come back to play it, which, not having a Switch or a Wii U, it was my brother's Wii U, I did not play the game again up until at some point last year. I had picked it up again and had played it on my fiance's Switch. I had been borrowing that and mostly playing retro titles, and in fact, the only reason I quit playing Breath of the Wild the second time around was to play A Link to the Past, which is my favorite Zelda game ever. A lot of history behind that in my life. Goes back to childhood memories with my mother playing it, and so it holds a special nostalgic piece, along with just the fact that the game is excellent. It is one of the top 3 video games ever made in my mind. Possibly the best. That and... Well, I'll make a list video later. I said I was going to do it, and I will. But anyway, I stopped playing Breath of the Wild, and it picked up A Link to the Past, and then I beat it and was just reminded of how wonderful of a game it is. Just a masterpiece. And I don't hand that title out often. And maybe that foreshadows what I'm going to be doing later on in this video. But my fiance gets me the Switch, and I was super surprised. You know, I have mentioned that I kind of thought she would do that, but she had sort of heard me saying negative things about Tears of the Kingdom, and so I kind of thought, oh well, you know, she might change her mind and get me something else, because I never requested that as a gift, and certainly was not going to purchase it myself. And I was going to wait until Nintendo made another move on their next console, and then possibly pick it up if it was backwards compatible, and play it then at a discount. That was going to be my move. And guys, I don't know any other way to say it, but I really could not have been more wrong about my previous take on this game. When she got it for me, I reluctantly opened it up because I was going to keep it in the box and just have it as like a collector's item on my shelf, since I wasn't interested in playing the game, and I thought I might just wait and play it on her Switch, which is the Animal Crossing edition. But I decided to get the game out and turn the OLED on, and was impressed with the way it looked. But I wanted to put the game on my projector. I've got a BenQ or Bink, however you say that. It's a very nice gaming projector. It's not 4K, but it's 1080p. It does upscale to 4K, and it's beautiful on the wall, and it looks like a movie theater in my house. And so I turned Tears of the Kingdom on, and again, you know, this is something that I was legitimately approaching with animosity in a way. You know, a game that I was only playing because she had gifted it to me, and I did not want to make it seem like I was ungrateful. And I played the game for a few hours, and just after the first hour in the game, I knew that my opinion was going to change greatly. I did not know that I was going to have the take that I'm going to give you now, but I'm not going to do a full review of the game in this video, but I am going to just make some points, and I'm going to kind of do it in a different way that what some other YouTubers have done. First and foremost, I am not, and I've said this multiple times, I am not a Nintendo blowhard. I am a Nintendo fan. I have grown up with Nintendo. I am as old as their consoles are, and they have had a special place in my life due to my late mother that was a huge fan, and especially the SNES era and in Nintendo 64 era. That's the golden age of gaming to me. And so it is with that I'm glad that I've got a Switch now and can enjoy these games because the magic is still there. And I noticed that it had been since playing Breath of the Wild. You know, there is a very epic scene in the opening of Breath of the Wild when you first venture out of the Shrine of Awakening, or the place where he wakes up for the first time and then walks out, and this beautiful open world is there. And I remember that. You know, I remember the feeling of that, and I had a very similar feeling in the Sky Island when this game opens. And I spent... I saw an article, it was Polygon or somewhere, that said, you know, people are spending way too much time on the Sky Island, but I also spent probably 10 or 15 hours there before completing the opening tutorial. And I was very frustrated with the controls in the beginning, and almost stopped playing the game at one point because I was like, this is not going to work. You know, am I going to do the whole game like this? And eventually I noticed that it was because I was so used to playing PlayStation 5 and having those PlayStation controls memorized with the buttons that I had to relearn the Nintendo controller layout. And I started playing with a GameCube, I think it's a Power A GameCube controller, and then I switched to the Nixie, one of the Nixie Pro controllers from Amazon, this Bluetooth, and I highly recommend those. It's wonderful. It feels like an Xbox remote, basically. And the controls were still hard to get down, but I barely played the game at all in portable mode. It was mostly all played in a cinematic environment in my home theater. And I'm so glad I did that, because, guys, this game is a breath of fresh air. No pun intended. It possibly should have been called Breath of Fresh Air. And it's like I said, I'm really speechless now. I'm only making this. It's been 4 months since I made a video, and I have been playing the Tears of the Kingdom since sometime in early May. And just now, at the tail end of August, I'm finishing it. A few nights ago, I finished the game. It's not 100%ed, but it is finished. I defeated the final boss and saw the final cutscenes. And this has been probably the greatest and most epic ride that I've ever taken in a video game. Possibly in all of media in my life. Game of Thrones would be up there, except for Season 8. R.I.P. to that series, but I have never had a piece of entertainment and a piece of media move me in the way this game has. I have never had something continuously prove me wrong at every turn than what this game has done. And I'll give you a few examples. With the Sky Island, I immediately noticed the change, and I made fun of people in these early videos talking about this, you know, the slight aesthetic changes, because I was like, it's freaking Breath of the Wild all over again. They've just changed the color palette in places. But guys, if you have this game already, and I'm going to talk to people who were like me and have not gotten it yet, but I'm talking to those of you that have the game right now. Do yourself a favor and play this game on a big screen. It does not have to be in crisp, clean 1080p or upscaled to 4K or even 8K in some instances. Please don't do that, because I noticed that on the OLED Switch, the game looks way too sharp. It almost needs a CRT filter. I would even suggest playing this on the biggest CRT you could find, because it does. I still stand by the fact that it looks like a GameCube game, but this is the most beautiful the most beautiful bad graphics that I've ever seen. They're even better than they were in Breath of the Wild. There are still some textures that are off, and you know, they look GameCube era, but this game is gorgeous. So I'll just start there. The game is beautiful. It looks like you're playing a Studio Ghibli movie, and just like Breath of the Wild did, but this one is even upped the color palette. They have added some saturation here and there, and on Link especially. You know, I don't know if it's just his flowing hair or, you know, what it is, but I found myself having a bro crush on him, you know, a couple of times. I'm like, wow, his character model looks really good. And there was a moment in the beginning of the game in the Sky Island that I just stopped and listened. And I might just put that sound in the video here. Just that subtle music. Breath of the Wild did this too, but not quite like this. And I'm gonna cover the music in a little bit, and that might even be the best part of this game. But back to the visuals, it has this. The aesthetic has changed drastically from a blue to almost a boho style that's or Irish colors in a way. It's like an emerald green with gold, and it's beautiful. I have no other word to say than it's beautiful. And the Zonai aesthetic in and of itself is gorgeous, much more so than I think the Sheikah technology and stuff was in Breath of the Wild. And this is no more evident than when entering a shrine, which I mentioned in earlier videos that I despised. I hated the shrines in Breath of the Wild. I dreaded going in them because I thought that they were tedious, repetitive trials that you were having to do. And that's not to say that that is completely remedied in Tears of the Kingdom. But because of the aesthetic, because of the subtle changes in the challenges that they put to you, and I think largely it has to do with your newfound abilities like Ultra Hand, the Ascend mechanic. It makes the game, it makes you want to approach these from a different perspective and try to cheat. The game does make you want to cheat, and that is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And so every time I saw a shrine, I went to it now. Not just to get more hearts, not to get more stamina by getting the spirit orbs, but because I genuinely looked forward to going into them. And also because the music, like I said, I'm going to talk about the music in a little bit, but the overall presentation to start the game, and when I just stopped there in that beautiful orange sun-baked grass on the Sky Islands and just took it all in up there, not knowing, you know, about the jump that would come later, not knowing about the huge surprises, literally huge, that's what she said, that were going to come later. But just the Sky Island, just the opening bit. And then, of course, finally getting in the Temple of Time, which is kind of weird, you know, that it's there's another Temple of Time floating in the air, but that's, you know, I didn't really understand that, but it is what it is, and just gorgeous. And it's almost like a giant Zen garden, basically. And so I get finished with the Sky Island tutorial and am ready to make the jump. And there was a point that I'm standing before the jump, and it's around sunset. And I'm taking it all in, and I'm constantly, guys, screenshotting this on the Switch. I'm like, this is some of the most beautiful landscape shots that I've seen in a game. Even for a game that looks like it's 20 years old, graphically, this is so gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And I take the jump. And this has been covered, you know, all over YouTube, so if you guys should know what the jump is by now. But it basically is when you experience the title card of the game, and it's the first skydive that you make. And Other than that, well, I apologize. There is the title card happens on the tutorial level, but the big jump that lets you get into Hyrule proper, where you basically have to find a body of water to land in because you don't have your paraglider, or your hang glider. It's epic. And when I landed into Hyrule Field for the first time and swam out and just looked around, there's no direction. Like you don't know where to go. You're basically open to go anywhere at that point. Just like the feeling that you had off the Great Plateau. When you landed in Hyrule proper, that's when this game opens up again. And I'm like, how did they capture lightning in a bottle twice here? How were they able to manage that? My jaw was on the floor, my mind was blown, and it was not even blown anywhere near what it would be upon discovering some of the things that I would within the next 20 hours or so of the game. And I make my way to the first Skyview Tower. I think it's the Castle Landing or Hyrule Landing, something like that. And that's where Pura is, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about her. I think the inappropriate comments are best reserved for other people. She is very beautiful. That's all I will say. That there's many characters in this game that are very beautiful, including Link. He is too. But I would say that she is very good to look at. Very pleasant on the eyes, and I was just like, what, wasn't she a child in Breath of the Wild? But then of course it explains how she becomes in her 20s again. But so I'm trying not to spoil things, but I think after this point I'm going to spoil some stuff just to finish the story here. It was basically a blink, and I was 150 hours in the game. And I think upon completing it, I was close to 200. Guys, I don't think I've spent that much time in any game ever. Maybe RE2 on the Nintendo 64 back in the day, just when that was all I had to play. I beat that game probably 10 or 15 times. Resident Evil 4, I might have spent that kind of time in beating it 10 or 15 times. And speaking of RE4, I am going to make a video about that, but this had to come first. This deserves to come first. I told you guys my most anticipated game was RE4, and it was until I played it, and then I played this game, and then, as I said, this game deserves to be covered first. And this is my game of the year. Easily, it is my game of the year. So let's, instead of just taking you through my entire journey, like some of you have already done, and not boring you to death, I want to talk about just the story and how it's changed. This game has made a monumental leap in terms of storytelling over Breath of the Wild. Whereas you have in Breath of the Wild, you have the Divine Beast stories. Basically, all of them are the same. They are not dungeons. They are just big, hollow mechanisms that you jump into, and you flip a few switches, and then you fight a boss, and they're off. That is sort of a dungeon layout, if you will, but nothing compared to this game. This game is as close to proper dungeons as they have done in years. It is a welcome return, and even though that the swimming mechanic was not there like I hoped it would be, like being able to dive and go underwater and explore the oceans of Hyrule and the lakes and all that stuff, there is a thing that you find later in the depths that I think makes up for that in a lot of ways. And the map is over twice the size as it was in Breath of the Wild. And that can be a very bad thing if you copy Breath of the Wild, in the sense that there was basically nothing to do. There's vast portions of land that there was nothing going on. There was no enemies there. There was nothing really to collect. And no missions there. That is completely changed in this game. Completely. There are side quests galore at every turn. There is a stable at every turn. There are people to meet, interesting people that you care about. You care about helping them. You care about helping them find stuff, bringing them stuff, and doing them the favors, because there is always a reward. No matter how small or how large it is, the game makes you want to do those things. And it's fun. It's fun to do those things. And I compare this game a lot to The Witcher 3 because I think, The Witcher 3 I've always thought was an adult version of Zelda, like a mature version of it. And I stand by that in a way. But in terms of collecting things in The Witcher 3, it becomes a chore after a while because your body is weighed down and you have to actually offload things, which is something that's unrealistic about Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild both. But, I mean, it's Zelda, guys. I mean, like this world there's a lot of things that defy the laws of physics here. So if they would have had an inventory cap, which they do as far as the quantity of items, but if they would have had a cap that actually weighed you down, that you had to offload stuff, that would have been probably worse than the weapons breaking. And and The Witcher 3 has that as well. That you have weapon degradation on it too. So I mean, it's not as quick and not as apparent and punishing as Zelda is. But that mechanic does return. Unfortunately, in a lot of ways, that the weapons break. But what they have added is the Ultra Hand Fusion feature that completely changes how you play the game. Completely. It changes how you approach fights. It changes how you prepare for them, because you can now fuse things to your weapons, your shields, your arrows. You can make any kind of arrow imaginable, even funny ones. I was making fun of people making meat arrows, but then I understood after playing the game the novelty of doing that sort of thing. And then just the way that the enemies respond to it. Some of them seem to be like they're surprised, like they're like, what the hell did he just shoot at me? And so it's like, and the reaction that I got from it was just like, this is so clever, and it's just nuance, small little things, that I'm seeing there. Like these are adults, that made this game, and so there's a lot of adult humor that kind of goes under the radar here, and so. Especially when it comes to some of the heroines in the game, like they subtly flirt with Link. Now I'm knocking water bottles over. The women are very forward with him, which I think is very Japanese, because there's no way an American publisher would allow this. Now they would never let a woman flirt with a man in games now. It just would not happen, and it does happen in this game. And Link is almost just, I don't know if he's just asexual or he doesn't respond. And of course he doesn't have a voice, which I'm irritated with, and I'm going to get to that too. You still read a lot of text in the game, and I might as well just go ahead and cover it. But there is barely any voice acting in the game. There is more voice acting in this game than there is in Breath of the Wild, that's nice. I found, and my fiance was watching me play the game. She became highly invested in the game. Anytime that she's a big anime fan, anytime that I put an anime on just to entertain her, or if I'm watching one, she is instantly, any sort of animation, she is instantly glued to the screen. There's just something about it that's her thing. And she's glued to the screen. Well, the scenes that I was hoping she would be watching in Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of them were playing out with worded text that you were having to read and cycle through. And I was like, damn it, this could have been voice acted. Like all that money that Nintendo has, and they couldn't, like they choose to do cutscenes with voices, but they couldn't do that. Like it's a mystery to me. I don't understand it, and that is a legitimate complaint. I think everyone should have that complaint. I don't like reading the text, and I get it. That's what they've always done. But hey, this is 2023. The voice actors that are in this game are talented. They do a very good job at. Now, sort of spoiler territory, but the corpse Ganon, his voice is amazing. The Chad Ganon, that we see, Ganondorf, that we see, throughout the game. I don't like his voice as much because he sounds like an atypical anime villain. He sounds like just a stereotypical anime voice. But he does a very good job at it, nonetheless. And I'll get to him in a bit too. But as far as the voice acting, A+. They do a great job. It's just there's not enough of it. And I noticed that every scene that there was voice acting in, especially like with Tulin, who I fell in love with from the beginning, and oh guys, I got to tell you a story about that too. That's what I was getting at too. But anyway, not to jump too far ahead, but every time that someone was speaking, my fiance, her eyes were glued to the projector screen. She was watching it just like a movie, and she was like, "This is really good," and I was like, "Yeah." Like I'm blown away. And then next thing you know, the cutscene ends and then you're reading text again. What the hell is that? So, in the next Zelda game, I really hope that they fix that. That they let these characters and give Link a voice. He needs a voice. Obviously, there's going to be a film. They're talking about the movie coming out after the success of Mario. I'm still yet to review that film, but I will. And they're going to make a Zelda film, and guys, he's going to have to talk. And I don't know what this fetish is about him not saying anything and him being a mute and all this stuff, but he needs a voice. He does talk in the game. He motions with his hands, and he does talk with the other characters. It's just you don't hear him. So he needs a voice, and I would love to volunteer to be his voice. I'd have to get rid of the southern accent a little bit, although I think that would kind of be funny if he had one, because people are going to hate it, no matter who does his voice. Which, as the trends go, it's probably going to be Chris Pratt, right? He's probably going to voice Link too. And so, how funny is that going to be when he's cast as Link? But that's just based Nintendo there. Anyway, like I said, A+ on the voice acting. But then these cutscenes are so epic, and they bring in the story, which is sort of oddly placed in this game. Okay, so and I'll give you a little example of that. The story is not just spelled out to you that linearly. So you have to go on a quest, which I sort of regret doing early. I went around looking for the tears. And just as in Breath of the Wild, there was memories that you would find. Well, that's what the tears serve as in this game. And you slowly but surely find out what has happened to Zelda. You find out that she has went back in time after the initial fall, where Link is unable to catch her. She has fell into time to a distant past with the Zonai, where they actually rule Hyrule, and their leader Rauru has married a Hylian. Sonia, I think, is her name, and they're the king and queen of Hyrule, and where Ganondorf is plotting basically a huge coup to take over the kingdom. And this is very, very similar, and in fact it is right on the nose to the plot of A Link to the Past. And in some ways, Ocarina of Time, especially the kneeling scene when he kneels in front of Rauru. He does that also in Ocarina of Time. He kneels before the king. So there's a lot of throwbacks there with that scene. But the sort of the little hints and the throwbacks to the imprisoning war from A Link to the Past. I was just like, is this a remake of A Link to the Past? And of course, I was rock hard, because that's my favorite game, and I was like, wow, they are really, really paying homage to this game with this, and they actually cinematically show the imprisoning war and how it plays out. And I'm just going to set my keyboard down here. So through these memories, you eventually find out that Zelda has made the ultimate sacrifice. Now, I was never caught up in all this stuff about, oh, well, we should be able to play as Zelda in one of these games. I think that would be fun. But a lot of your Western left progressives have really been pushing for some of these female characters to have more of the spotlight. That the male characters are old news, they're old hat. We don't need them anymore. That this is time for girl power, even though it's it's okay for men to pretend to be women in a lot of cases, and then take that spotlight away from them, which that's a totally different thing, and I don't want to get off on that, but you guys see what I mean. Like that, they've really pushed for Zelda to be in the spotlight, and I have no problem with that. Her name is on the cover, but this franchise is as old as I am, and it's always been about Link saving with Zelda's help. She has always been a crucial factor in these games, and she is equally as important to Link. We're equal here to accomplishing this goal and taking down these are the members of the Triforce. If any of you are old enough to remember when the Triforce was part of these games, which it's weirdly absent from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, only in the symbol on a few things, is the Triforce there. It's not mentioned. And there's some pretty cool theory videos online about this now that I suggest that you watch about that, because I agree with what they point to. But the Triforce, the powers of the Triforce are linked to Link, Zelda, and Ganon. Those three pieces of the Triforce have always been linked to those three. So Zelda is a crucial factor, and she plays a much better and I think it's the best role she's had in the series in this game. She commits the ultimate sacrifice. She sacrifices her life eternally, not just in the afterlife, but eternally, to save her people and her kingdom. And there's hints given in the game that she is in love with Link in a way, and because they live together. If you go to Link's house, there's stuff that you find in there that suggests that they have moved in together. I don't know if that's just because he is her, guardian, her custodian, or whatever, and those people that are, anti-Link and Zelda getting together, that's what they would point to. But I could really care less. I don't think that it serves the story in any way except for the ending, and I'll talk about that later. But the thing is, she has my ultimate respect. She's not a girl boss. She's not a toxic feminist. She's not constantly putting men down and saying that they don't have any role left or anything. She is fair. She is honest. She is the epitome of grace. And that's the highest compliments I can give to her. She is beautiful in more ways than one, and she is pure. She loves her kingdom. She cares about them. She cares about not only the present, but the past and the future. And it takes all of that. She sacrifices all of that to save her people. And upon seeing these memories and these scenes, I'm getting chills just describing this to you now, because I'm telling you, I am almost 38 years old, and I have not cried since the death of my mother, which was in 2014. And I'm telling you that I had tears in my eyes when I saw the culmination of these memories, to see what she had to do, the suffering that she had to go through to save her people, and not knowing if it would save them. Just to take the chance to save her people. To preserve the Master Sword, the blade of evil's bane, that iconic blade that has been with this series since A Link to the Past. And it serves a much greater symbolism in this game that I think it ever has before. In the scene when you find this all out and you finally recover the sword, not to give that too much away, but when you finally get the sword and find out where it is, I was very emotional about it, knowing that she had to do all those things and has suffered for literally thousands of years, waiting for you and for me to find her, not knowing if we ever would. It left me speechless. And never before in a game or in any entertainment was I moved quite like that. And given the motivation that I have to find her. I have to not only save her, not like a Mario saving the princess, just that old cliche, but I have to save this kingdom. I might not be able to save her, but with her cause, with her sacrifice, I can save this kingdom. I've never experienced that. And I'm still in awe of it now. And this, as I said, this was very early on. This was a small mistake I think that I made by uncovering these memories early, because I had that weight on me the entire time I played. It made me want to finish the game early. And I refused to do so. I wanted to put the time into the side quest because these characters are so charming. There are some of them that are annoying. There are some of them that I wish that there was a choking button to take them out and put them to sleep for a little while. But I think that's part of it. With every good story, there's going to be an annoying comedic relief. For better or worse. The Koroks. I need to reach my friend. So, just speaking of them really quick, you have to save a lot of them. And it is pretty creative this time around. You're not just picking up rocks and finding them underneath them anymore. You're actually having to pick them up and fuse them to your vehicle or your horse's buggy or whatever. And take them to their destination. So and it does create fun things to do, and it's, once again, it is the game teaching you how to traverse this land and this terrain differently, and you don't realize that until later, and you're like, wow, how can I get this Korok to his friend or her friend or its friend? I've got to be correct here. How do I move this Korok to this place? Would it be easier for me to create a vehicle or to just walk the damn thing up there? What is the best way to do it? Because you can't fuse anything to yourself like that. So it's not like you can just fuse it onto your back and then go. Now, I haven't tried fusing a Korok to a shield, so that would be interesting. I don't think you can, but that would have been interesting to see if I could carry it. I think I'll do that today. But guys, back to the story for a second. The divine beasts are gone, and they have been replaced with proper temples. And without giving too much away, just the discovery of these temples is an epic thing in and of itself. You go to familiar territory, but it's changed. There is a form of blight that is affecting all of these areas of the kingdom, such as Death Mountain, the Goron City, the Zora people, out in the desert, the Gerudo, and then of course the Rito, which I think, oddly I chose to do the Rito quest. Uh-oh, they're coming to get me. I don't know if you could hear a siren in the background. The Rito portion, I did it first. And I think due to difficulty's sake, the game sort of pushes you in that direction first. It is the best temple in the game because of the ascent to get there. the temple is in the sky, and it's extremely high up. And this is before you really have the ability and have upgraded your batteries to use vehicles to climb that high in the sky. So even by using the towers and launching you into the air, you're not going to be able to get that high. And so you're forced into climbing and having Tulin, the Rito, basically he's the apprentice and he's one of the sages that helps you. He is a great addition to the game, and there is one annoyance that I'm going to get to in a second. But you can use his ability to help boost you when you use the glider, and without falling anymore. And just the climb and the subtle build to what you're getting to get to the temple is incredible. With each foot that you, basically each stair that you climb into the heavens to find this temple, the music starts building. And once again, I told you I'm going to get into music. Well, I'm beginning to bring this in here, you see. The music builds. And I am imploring all of you to go listen to the music of this game in your spare time. Now, it's not going to mean as much to you without playing it, but just listen to it. This is the best soundtrack to a game that I've ever heard, and I've listened to many of them. The Secret of Mana soundtrack, A Link to the Past, Skyrim, Chrono Trigger, you name it. Like some of the Donkey Kong, goodness, I can just keep naming that are just icons of music in general. Some of the best music you'll ever hear. Especially the orchestrated versions. Listen to those. But Zelda is special. It's had some really good music and the themes. But this game is a step above all of that. It's a step beyond that. Because it infuses some of those themes of old in a creative way that is... it's therapy to the ears. And when you walk into a shrine, it's not the same music anymore, which I like, because the old music sort of had this, it was a theme that was sort of pressure. I liked it. It was my ringtone for a while, the old shrine theme. And that was also one of, like, I think the main title screen in Breath of the Wild, that theme. But the new shrine theme and the Raru's Blessing theme, like, there's different takes on the theme. There's different versions that play each time you go into a shrine. And it's so soothing. It is so calming. And it's just like, man, this is an environment I just want to stay in. Because it's zen. It's just a beautiful, beautiful theme that plays. But back to climbing into the sky with the Rito boss, making it to that temple in the sky, the music starts building and building and building, and eventually, when you finally get to the boss, it's one of the most epic pieces of orchestrated music I've ever heard, and it's not only there. But I think that the effect that it has on you, with that being your first temple, it's impossible, except for maybe the final boss, for that to be one-upped, if you will. Now, some of you, your mileage is going to vary with that. I'm sure you're going to like, all of us like different types of music and stuff, and this game is full of different types of themes, just as Breath of the Wild was. It's a lot of the music is recurring from Breath of the Wild, like in particular, like the horse theme, like when you're riding through the fields and stuff, which I love that. It should not have changed. It's just an elegant little tiny bit of strokes from a piano, and it's beautiful. It's mature, and it's not overwhelming in any moment until it matters. And this is the most masterful application of music to any medium that I've ever seen. It is masterful. And the people that are behind it, who were inspired by the legendary Koji Kondo, who many of you know who this is. He still works with Nintendo, but he is not the chief orchestrator of the music and composer of this game. He's not whoever this guy is and his crew, or gal and their crew. They're amazing, and they need a raise because this music is so captivating, guys. I can just gush about it all day, but you must listen to it. You need to do it with headphones, or you need a good surround sound like I have. And let this take you on a journey. The music by itself is worth the price of admission, and I'm going to get to the price as well too. But to cover the last bit on the music, when you get into a fight, and it's sort of similar to Breath of the Wild in a way, but it's almost as if the music it starts out so subtle, and then it builds and it builds and it builds, and this orchestra is playing behind you. And I'm getting chills talking about this. Like it just builds, and these instruments playing, it's as if they are willing you to win the fight. That they are playing there as old war drums in war, in battle. They're willing you with this epic grand soundtrack to win. And it's like I said, I've never experienced this before. Not like this. A Link to the Past is one of those that's very similar, but it was, that's a long time ago, and it was different. Those themes just play over and over and over. This does that in a way, but it only hits when it's needed, and in that sense, it never gets old. And you find yourself just overwhelmed with how beautiful this music is, and how impactful it is when you finally beat these enemies, and you're like, wow, what a journey, what a ride. Let's do it again. and I felt like a kid again, guys. I did, and in that, and in the gameplay of this, and discovering things, the discovery of the depths and stuff. I was, every day that I had free, that I didn't have to work, and even after I worked and got free, I wanted to turn this game on and play it. There was no open world fatigue at all. I was so eager to get up early in the mornings. This harkened back to when I was a kid. When on the weekends we would go rent a movie or in a game or a couple of games and get pizza. We'd have friends over that'd spend the night, and we would all try to be the first to wake up. On school days, you want to sleep in. You dread getting up. 6 a.m., 7 a.m. to have to go to school. But then on Saturday morning, after a long Friday night, being up with your friends, playing your games and stuff, especially back in that NES and SNES era, even through the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 era for me, and even later, there was those days of getting up, and I just remember the Super Nintendo, us getting up and racing in the living room to be able to pick up the Player 1 controller. We didn't want to be Player 2. But then if you didn't get Player 2, then you were out of luck. And guys, I relived that with this game. I was so eager in the morning, I would get up early just to play this game. Because I couldn't wait for the next challenge. I couldn't wait for the next cave, the next well, which those are things that have been added and expanded upon. The villages that you go by, like they've had all these different challenges placed on them, and some of them have been seized by pirates. Laurelin Village, for example, not to spoil too much, but it's been taken over by pirates. And it's silly, little things, and you're just like, this is Zelda. It's crazy how much is going on, because you go to a different region and it's completely the opposite of what's going on there. And And I will get to a few little gripes like I was talking about earlier. You know, I did mention that a gripe I had about the AI and the sages. They mostly serve to help you. When they're activated, now they did not behave this way in Breath of the Wild, but they're actually companions. I do like that in a way. Their spirits are companions to you as you go along in the game, and so you're like, well, wow, you know, they actually shoot arrows at enemies and help me and stuff. Well, it gets annoying after a while because when you're trying to activate one of them, you can easily activate the wrong one, and you can die doing this. And sometimes you activate them when you're not trying to at all. You're just merely trying to pick up something off the ground. Tulin, I activated his wind ability several times, and he blew away the object I was trying to pick up. So that was very annoying to me. And eventually I started turning them off. And the only sage that I kept up was one that is not, it's not apparent that it exists in the game. Let's put it that way. It's a surprise. And this game is full of them. It is full of surprises around the corner, but that was a big one. And I was like, wow, you know, that just that this particular sage that I'm talking about is different from all the rest. And in my review, I will talk about that more. And the review won't be as long as this video probably, but I rant and rave a lot and I get off on a tangent. But I hope that this will resonate with you guys as well, though, because I love finding new things in games, you know, and exploring and collecting and picking things up. The sound that it makes, that little noise that it makes every time that you pick up an item, and like it's so addictive. And you want to collect stuff. You want to fuse different things. And let's talk about fuse, for example. The mechanic of making vehicles and fusing things, you know, in the Breath of the Wild, you did not have, they've added a harness for your horse so that you can have a buggy attached to it. Well, they didn't have that in that game. So you can actually fuse a carriage to the horse. And early in game, this is important because you need to taxi some of the characters around to different locations, and it's slow and it seems tedious at first, but then you really enjoy it because it's sort of like Red Dead Redemption. You know, there's always a challenge that comes along with doing that in the form of enemies. So no different in this game here. So it's really fun. There are characters that you have to assist by using the fuse feature, one of which is annoying as hell. The guy that holds the sign up, you have to help him build the sign, essentially, because he's too stupid to realize after a couple of times, hey, you know, I can just build a base for this sign and it holds it up. He just doesn't learn. He's like a squirrel. He forgets stuff after 5 minutes. You know, he'll be hiding all of his collection of nuts. He'll be hiding his collection of nuts, and then 5 minutes later he'll forget where he put them. Essentially, you know. So you have to help him. I don't know, 100 times. But it's funny because it's challenging each time you do it. You have to use different things to help him. So once again, that's the game just subtly teaching you what to do in these situations. It's brilliant. It's genius, actually. And something I certainly wouldn't have thought of. And it's more creative stuff. And so, but then once you start to build vehicles, and there is an ability called the auto build that you get, and it's not, a lot of you would have to look this up to be able to find it. I certainly did. I did not know how to discover it. And you don't just, unless you stumble upon it, it's not something that just happens in the game, in the story. So auto build is one of the I would say it's probably the second or third best ability that you have, and most important, because you can just summon a vehicle out of nothing. And if you have the components, then you can use auto build with no charge to you, with the Zonite currency that it takes to build these vehicles. And building your battery storage and capacity is one of the biggest things about this, because at first you're very frustrated. I know I was, that whenever I built the hover bike, I was only able to go like 10 feet and the battery died. So, you know, you need to upgrade your batteries sooner than later. So do that. And But once you get the batteries upgraded, I think I'm full now. Right at the end of the game, I was full, and then I was like, wow, you know, I can go. And you don't have to have the full battery capacity. I mean, you can use the Zonite cores, or the Zonite charges, whatever they are, and it will keep your batteries charged for a amount of time, but those are finite as well, and you have to go mine those, or you have to kill the Zonite constructs to get them. So there's a process to all of this. You have to earn everything. You know, this game doesn't really give you much except for apples and tomatoes, and those are important too. And I'm trying to find something I don't like, you know, as I'm talking to you all. I mean, there are some things, you know, as I said, the weapons breaking, I don't really like that. The combat mechanics, you know, they have grown on me. I hated them in Breath of the Wild, but now I have learned to parry better. I'm actually better at the game, and it made me appreciate Breath of the Wild a little more, like the difficulty of it. I did die a lot in this game. The difficulty does scale, especially after you start upgrading armor at the ferries, and so, you know, the enemies do get a bit tougher, and your weapons, fortunately, they get tougher as the time goes on. And the Master Sword, it still breaks, unfortunately. Which, why the hell would it break? I guess you wouldn't use anything else after that point, but it's just annoying. You know, it's supposed to be the greatest weapon in the game, and yet it's just like all the rest, you know, and then you have to wait on it to recharge. It's like it's got a battery. But the very minor gripes. And I don't want this video to last forever. It's over an hour already, but I'm telling you all, I'll start closing up a little bit, but I think I've covered about everything I wanted to. But I want to finish up with where I started. I want to formally, in as small of a YouTuber as I am, I know that my voice was heard by some, and it was shared. Those opinions were shared by others. I want to apologize to Eiji Aonuma. This will probably never reach your ears, sir, and especially translated to you, it will probably never reach your ears, but I want you to know something. I humbly apologize for doubting you. You had not really given me a reason to doubt you and your team. And Nintendo at large, you had not really given me a reason. There has never been really a definitively bad Zelda game. But with the cynicism that is in our current climate, our social order breaking down as it is. And these are not excuses. This is just how this is. It's how the world is, unfortunately. People that are my age and even younger, unfortunately, they are becoming more cynical. They're not as trusting of these developers. When you have a Cyberpunk scenario that they release a game that is so hyped yet delivers so little, a buggy mess, a Fallout scenario, people are starting to lose trust in these companies. And Nintendo did nothing to deserve that, other than they showed so little of this game before releasing it. And I speculated in earlier videos that this was maybe because they were still trying to push the Mario movie and didn't really want this to one-up that, or, you know, I didn't understand why they were not showing anything other than it had to be because there was nothing new. And I could not be more wrong about that. And I'm only half apologizing about that point because I had nothing to go on. I had not been proven otherwise until someone bought the game for me. And I feel so bad for the fact that this game would have sold probably a third more than what it has if they had shown more of the game before this. They were relying on blind fandom and blind trust to market this game, and it did pay off for them, guys. I mean, look at how many copies this game has sold. You know, like, so many people bought it. And I'm happy they did, because they're sharing the same experiences that I have. But at the same time, I feel bad for those that were like me that never will have picked it up, because they have no idea how much of a masterpiece this game is. How much of a monumental moment in time this game is. They have no idea of the profound effect that it will have on their life by playing it. And they might never find that because of the poor marketing of this game. And that's a tragedy. It really is. And I hope that there will be some form of rectification for that. I don't really know how they ever will rectify that. But people like me that have gotten their hands on this game and actually played it. You know, I was criticizing a guy on his channel just yesterday, and I said, you know, you're saying that this game is overrated, yet you haven't played it. And you must play it. And then if you think it's overrated, then okay. And I want to point out one thing. I've said this in previous videos as well, that Nintendo fans are some of the most toxic in the world. Some of them, they are blind zealots, and they will sacrifice you at the altar of Mario, just like Disney fans will, just for the slightest criticism. I am not one of those people. I am not a convert to one of those people. I have not been held at gunpoint to make this video. I was a skeptic and I was a doubter of this game, and I have been utterly proven wrong. And I have never been more happy, humbled, and thankful to be wrong about anything in my life. Never more. I implore you that if you are sitting listening to this video right now, that if you have the means, if you don't want to spend the $70, I understand that. To me, this game is worth $200. It could be worth more than that. I really mean that. The sheer amount of love and attention and passion that has went into making this game what it is and what it will be for generations to come. People are going to look back on this game decades from now and point back to it, just like they have with A Link to the Past, like I'm doing now. And they're going to point to this game and say, that is where this really went right. It did everything, virtually all things perfectly. It's not a perfect game, but it is perfectly imperfect. They're going to look back on this game and say that. And I am telling you, I came into this thinking, and I still believe that Breath of the Wild is an overrated game in many ways, because it underdelivered in certain aspects. After playing other open world games, I was like, wow, this is not really that fresh. But it was basically, and I'm on the same bandwagon as some people that say that this game is, Breath of the Wild is basically the beta version of this game. And I believe that too. Some people like Breath of the Wild better. They like the exploration better because it's more grounded. I understand that. But this game gives you so much creative freedom to approach any scenario, any challenge in a different way than you did the last time. And that's what I love about it. No other game has done it quite this way and this much. And if you guys know of games that have done it this well, this good, tell me. I want to play them, because this game is a masterpiece. It is a wonderful achievement, a monumental achievement in an industry that is rife with political correctness, with social politics, that they determine the outcome of what would be a good game in making it a bad one. It has been released in a time where I did not think it would be possible. I cannot believe this game. I'm still in disbelief as to how good it is. and the effect that it's had on me emotionally and even spiritually. I implore you to pick this game up. Even if you wait for it to be on sale, even if you get it at Black Friday, if they happen to do a deal on it, which Nintendo usually does not do, but borrow it and play it. You will not be disappointed. And you do not owe me any thank you. You owe that to Nintendo. Other than the fact that they were so poor at marketing this behemoth of a game. I can't believe that they did such a poor job marketing it. That's a crime. They should all be put on trial for it. But to all the people that made this game to make it happen, and even with some of the shortcomings it has, to me it is a perfect game. And I don't know where it's going to land in my all-time greats list, but I'm telling you, this is the best game that I have played in nearly 20 years. It is a phenomenal achievement, and it has changed my life. I did not think at 38, almost 38, that I would ever be wrong like that, and surprised by something so much, and especially to be thankful to be wrong. But this game changed that for me. That's all I've got for today, guys. I thank you all for watching this video. I would kindly ask that you give it a like or a dislike if you didn't like it, if you don't like the sound of my voice or the opinions that I have. And I ask that you subscribe to this channel if you want more opinions like this. I'm going to do some videos about RE4. That game certainly deserves some attention from me, a huge Resident Evil fan. But there will be more videos about Tears of the Kingdom in the future as well. So, guys, stay tuned. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening. See ya.